In the automotive world, the Toyota Sequoia was literally the automotive equivalent for a dinosaur. With a design that dates back to 2008, a time where George W. Bush was still president of the United States, to say this vehicle was in desperate need of a redesign was an understatement. Now, thankfully for 2023, the past is in the past because Toyota is finally ready to release an all-new, fully redesigned version of the Sequoia this year. And as you can see, it's got styling that mirrors that of the all-new Tundra, which means it's riding on an all-new frame. The V8 is gone, replaced with a hybrid-only powertrain, and the interior now features a very large 14-inch touchscreen that finally brings this SUV into the modern era. So if you guys have been waiting for an all-new version of the Sequoia, was this fully redesigned version worth the wait? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we talk about the all-new styling for this third generation Sequoia, I want to show you guys what's powering this vehicle because everybody seemed to love the V8 in this model, or the old model. It was a thirsty proposition, however, so to fix that, Toyota has replaced it with a twin-turbo V6 that's electrically assisted. If you guys have spent some time in the completely redesigned Toyota Tundra, this is the same powertrain as that vehicle. It only comes with the iForce Max engine, which means you have a combination of a 3.4 liter, technically it's a 3.5, what Toyota calls it, but the actual displacement is 3.4, twin turbo direct and port injected V6. Now, this V6 engine on its own makes like 389 horsepower. Toyota offers a non-hybrid version on the Tundra, but on the Sequoia, they are only sticking with the hybrid option, which pairs basically a 36 kilowatt hour electric motor that's sandwiched between the engine and the 10-speed transmission. So it's a different type of hybrid system versus what you find in their CVT equipped hybrids. It just has one electric motor, and it kind of adds as like a little boost of acceleration. It can drive the vehicle on electric power alone at very, very low parking lot speeds. Anytime you kind of touch the accelerator, you need more power, the gas engine will wake up, and it's a very smooth proposition. Now, the overall power output is very impressive. It matches that of the Tundra at 437 horsepower and 583 pound-feet of torque. That is a healthy increase of like 181 pound-feet more versus the old 5.7 liter V8. It's like a 70 or 80 horsepower jump or 60 horsepower jump over the old V8 as well in terms of horsepower. And fuel economy, Toyota finally has that ready now. It's rated at up to 21 in the city and 24 on the highway if you guys go for rear-wheel drive. My particular tester here is four-wheel drive. It's their part-time four-wheel drive system with an automatic limited slip rear differential. This is rated at 19 in the city and 22 on the highway. Regular gas is recommended. And if you look at the old V8, this is actually an improvement of up to 6 mpg combined, because this will now do 20 mpg combined. We'll try out the fuel economy when I get this out on the road. We'll do a fuel economy and 0 to 60 testing for it. Toyota doesn't rate the 0 to 60, but I got 5.7 seconds in a Tundra, so I expect this to be pretty similar. The new Sequoia, even though it's on an all-new TNGA-F platform, it actually weighs about the same as the old model. This version here, the Platinum, with all the battery packs and whatnot, weighs in at just over 6,100 pounds. The old Sequoia was also around 6,000 pounds, and this model here is rated to tow a maximum of 9,000 pounds. Certain versions of the Sequoia will tow up to 9,500 pounds, so Toyota has obviously improved the towing. And even though the weight isn't much, acceleration should be much improved, which we'll talk about when we get this vehicle out on the road. Now, closing the hood, let's go ahead and talk about the styling of the new Sequoia, because if you guys like the styling on the Tundra, this should be pretty familiar. However, Toyota decided to give the Sequoia its own unique front fascia. This particular one that I'm showing you is the Platinum grade. Toyota offers a choice of several different styles of grills. There are 5 different grades to choose from, starting at the SR5, going all the way up to the Capstone model. The Platinum is basically 2 notches away from top of the line. The TRD Pro and Capstone sits above this model. You can see all Sequoias come standard with full LED headlights. However, if you guys go for the Platinum grade, you'll get these sequential LED turn signals with the LED daytime running lights. You also have LED fog lights down here at the lower front fascia. The grille on the Platinum, you can see, kind of has like this dark silver or this dark gray finish to it. It actually has this really interesting chain link hexagonal look to the inner portion of the grille. The SR5 will have kind of horizontal slats along with the limited grade. The TRD Pro will kind of spell out Toyota at the front. in the grille. And then the capstone has this grille, but it's chrome as opposed to the dark gray. You can see the Toyota emblem here has a blue highlight behind it to show that this is a hybrid model, which again, hybrid is only standard on the Sequoia. And I also really like the front fascia because unlike the Tundra, where you have like the grille kind of extending into the lower front splitter, the Sequoia splits it up, and you can see this fake grille here is not quite as large. There are some functional openings down there. I suspect some Tundra owners may actually want to swap out the front end of their truck for the Sequoias, because in this celestial silver, I'm not usually a fan of silver cars, I think it's a really handsome looking truck, much better looking versus the refreshed Expedition that I just recently tested. Now looking at the rest of the side profile, you can see for this all new platform, Toyota decided to actually make the Sequoia about 3 inches longer. Remember, this is riding on the TNGA F platform, an all new frame, ladder type frame. Toyota says it's stiffer, it's stronger. The wheelbase is the same at 122 inches long as the previous generation. However, overall length is now 208.1 inches long. The new Sequoia is surprisingly about 0.3 inches narrower versus last year's model. It's still over 79.6 inches wide, so it's still really wide. Its height is also about the same. I'm sorry, it's about an inch higher if you guys go for the TRD Pro models. But overall, it's a good size. It's still about an inch or so shorter versus its main American competition. Now, the Platinum grade that I'm showing you here, which by the way, this 4-wheel drive version has about 8.6 inches of ground clearance. If you guys go for the TRD Pro, it raises it up to about 9.1. And I suspect those of you who plan to go off-roading, that is gonna get scraped up pretty easily. It's there for aerodynamics, for fuel economy. I suspect owners are gonna end up taking that off if you actually do have to go off-roading. The 20-inch wheels that come with the Platinum, you can see have this gray finish. They're riding on 265/60 series R20-inch tires. These are Yokohama Geolandar, basically street tires. You can also take your pick between an 18-inch wheel on the lower trims or the TRD Pro, which comes with a 33-inch tall tire. The capstone's the one that gives you the 22s. This is going to give you a nice compromise between ride and handling. You can see the brakes are nearly 14 inches in diameter. They're a opposed twin-piston caliper design. You have an independent front suspension at the front of the vehicle, and at the rear you have a multi-link setup that's actually a live axle. That's right, Toyota has regressed back to a live axle at the back of this vehicle, and they say because the frame of this vehicle accommodates that, and I guess they just didn't want to spend the extra development cost to go with an independent rear. Toyota will give you all kinds of PR answers for that, but that is a regression versus the previous generation, which had an independent rear suspension. Now looking at the rest of the side profile, I really like the way the new Sequoia looks, especially with the kind of sculpted design for the fenders in the vehicle. The one thing I think Toyota could do without, however, are these black painted side panels or the rocker panels for the vehicle. I think it kind of makes the wheels look a little bit too small. You can kind of get it in a technical camo if you guys go for the TRD Pro. You can see this indent here. I really like the way this kind of flows, where the rear handle almost kind of fits into the actual indent of the vehicle. And then looking at the rear, remember, Toyota does not offer a longer wheelbase version of the Sequoia. I think that's something they should consider, but the rear of the vehicle obviously has its own unique styling to it. I see some hints here of the Toyota Sienna minivan, maybe even a Chevy Traverse in the design of the taillights. You can see the Platinum version gives you like this black trim here between the two taillights. You have the same sequential style LED turn signals, full LED taillights. The rear also has kind of black lettering where it spells out Sequoia very proudly at the back. No visible exhaust tips going with that hybrid theme. There's just one exhaust hidden underneath the bumper. I kind of wish that Toyota gave this car kind of like a dual sporty exhaust setup. On the TRD Pro, you actually get a unique exhaust with twin pipes that sticks out with the chrome outlet. Chrome pipes. So again, that's something a little bit more unique for the TRD Pro version. The Platinum version that I'm showing you here tries to be a little bit more elegant. Now looking at the rear cargo area, first of all, if you push this button, this actually allows you to flip up the rear liftgate, which the previous generation had that roll down window that I know a lot of you are probably going to miss, but at least Toyota still gives you the option to open this up and kind of access the cargo area. If you want to open up the cargo area, you do have that foot activated power liftgate, which is going to be included on most trims. And here is my big issue with the new Sequoia. Because of that live axle at the back and the fact that this car only comes as a hybrid, the battery pack actually lives underneath the third row. The cargo space on this new version has been severely compromised compared to its competitors and the previous generation. You get around 11.5 to around 22 cubic feet of space with the third row seat up. Now the third row, this is with its slid all the way back, that's where you get 11.5 cubic feet of space. Now, Toyota gives you this really cool feature where you can kind of come back here with one hand and literally slide the third row forward. This is the position that it'll be in when you have 22 cubic feet. However, you basically have eaten up all the legroom that's in the third row. It slides about 5 inches or 6 inches, I believe, and that eats up all the legroom. So the third row is now rendered useless. And then you also notice here, because of the fact that the floor is raised up, it is not flush with the load floor. Now to fix that, Toyota has given us this kind of adjustable cargo shelf where you can kind of put it in this position here where it allows you to kind of have a level floor, but then you have this kind of open area right here, which that is kind of useless. Now if you want, you can basically power fold these third row, which comes standard, I believe, on the limited grades and up. Now, when you power fold the third row down, Toyota says this expands the space to around 49 cubic feet of space. Again, the floor is not flat. The third row doesn't come out, it doesn't slide out of the way, it doesn't provide you that flat floor, which is really frustrating for those of you who probably need to actually carry, you know, some decent stuff back here. This is going to be compromised a lot. Now, if you want to create a flat floor, Toyota gives you the option to kind of move this shelf into this upper position here, and you can kind of open up these little flaps, and that's their solution to give you a flat floor. Again, you have storage underneath here, and you have almost 50 cubic feet of space. That is not bad, but again, this solution here could be a deal breaker for some people, especially considering in this class, you're constantly wanting to carry a lot of people and their stuff. Now, if you fold down the second row captain's chairs, which come on this Platinum model, you can also get a bench where it can seat up to 8. You get around 90 cubic feet of space, around 89.6 cubic feet. That is obviously going to be less than the competition, especially when you start comparing it to the long wheelbase models. So just be sure that you're okay with the compromised cargo area on the new Sequoia. You're going to be paying that price for the battery pack, of course, and for that live axle in the rear suspension. So now that we've talked about the all-new exterior of the redesigned Sequoia, I want to show you guys the interior, but first thing I want to show you is the key fob. You can see this is Toyota's current key fob. Their intelligent access key comes standard on all Sequoias. Surprised to see that the Toyota logo here is not kind of accented in blue to show that this is a hybrid. However, this model that I'm driving is a very, very early pre-production car because as of this filming, Toyota actually hasn't even started building these cars from the plant in San Antonio, Texas just yet. Now this Platinum grade that I'm showing you, as soon as you open the door, it's got these power retractable running boards which you can turn on and off, but you can see it really helps you get into this truck because it has nearly 9 inches of ground clearance. And the interior spec that I'm showing you guys, celestial silver with this kind of black real leather. If you guys go for the capstone, you'll get the semi-aniline leather with the black and white two-tone. It's got this blue stitching here. Lower trims of the Sequoia will have either cloth or the Softex fake leather seats. These seats are heated and ventilated. They also adjust in 14 different ways. You also have a 2-person memory function. You can see the leatherette material or the Softex is carried over onto the actual door panel here with the blue stitching. You have an aluminum silver painted accented door handle. It's not actually aluminum. Padded armrest over here, and then you can see there's some good storage on the door pockets here. All this area here is a hard touch plastic material, which is pretty much what I expected. This Platinum grade also has the 14-speaker Jbl Sound System, which sounds a little bit better versus the Jbl system in the Tundra that I last tested, which I believe had 11 speakers. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think the seats are very, very wide. They just don't have very much lateral support, but they are relatively comfortable. And the seats themselves, I like how they're actually, you know, with the blue stitching and they're an actual leather material. Now getting inside, you can see there's a grab handle to help short people like myself get in. And then once you get in and shut the door has a nice solid sounding thunk that leads to a great impression of quality. And then when you want to fire the vehicle up, there's a power button right here where you'd expect it to be, but the steering wheel does cover it up. And then all Sequoias come standard with the digital 12-inch display over here, which you can see shows a really cool graphic. It shows 5 different national parks, just like on the new Tundra. And then you have this massive 14-inch display here. Now, standard SR5, or the base SR5 trims will have an 8-inch display, but most of the trims will have the 14-inch display. This is literally double the size of the previous generation Sequoia. The biggest you can get in the past was a 7-inch display. So this was just really needed. It's got their new Toyota Connected Services, Toyota Connected Audio Infotainment System. So it means you have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and it also has over-the-air updates. It's just far more modern. It's really well integrated into the actual dashboard here. I like the placement right between the 2 air vents here, and it sits up a little bit higher, but it doesn't look like completely tacked on. And it's also quick and snappy and responsive, which I think is a great, you know, indication of Toyota's technology here, where they really wanted to catch up to the rest of the industry. So that's very important. Now you can see to the side here, there's all your usual shortcut menus and whatnot, you can go into the car setting here to go to settings. The car does have built-in GPS. Their Toyota navigation system is perfectly fine. You can see it's nothing super special, but right now the system takes a second to boot up, but the map display here looks okay. Most of you are probably going to be using the CarPlay anyways to access things. There's your audio information. This car also has driver profiles where you can log in and customize the actual driver profiles to each individual driver. And overall, I like the way the screen looks. You can see there are traditional buttons here and knobs for the volume control. There is no tuning knob, however, you have to go into the screen to actually tune. But you can see you've got tri-zone climate control, heated and ventilated seats, which are standard if you guys go for the limited and up. The SR5 comes standard with heated seats, while the ventilated seats come with the limited grade and up, which is nice. Really big knobs and buttons here. Push this little button there, you can see there's your full 360 camera, which actually comes standard on every Sequoia. That's right, if you want a 360 camera, it's standard on every trim, which is a huge upgrade versus the previous generation, and the graphics and resolution just looks a lot better. On a big vehicle like this, you're gonna want a full backup 360 camera with the tow mirrors or the tow displays and whatnot. So that's a huge upgrade. Again, part of the tech with this car brings it into the modern era. Now, in terms of the materials, this is a platinum grade, so let's go ahead and talk about that really quick. Now, first of all, the steering wheel in this car, same one that's in the new Tundra. It's got a power tilt and telescoping design, which is definitely nice. It's got some fake stitching over the airbag cover. You have buttons here for the Toyota Safety Sense 2.5. It's got adaptive cruise control with stop and go, traffic jam assistance. It's got lane keep assist. Buttons here for your audio controls. The horn sounds good. It's appropriate given the size of the vehicle. And then you can see here the display. You can kind of customize the display here. On the left part of the screen, you control it from this little button here. You can see that looks pretty similar to every other Toyota product. If you go into the settings here, you can actually change the way the display looks. You can customize the right side. You can also change the way the tack looks as well. You can give it a big speedo if you'd like. I actually like the right side showing, however, the boost gauges. If you want, you can also do pitch and roll gauges. And then you can also do tow gauges, which is basically the same as the boost gauges, but it also gives you an oil temperature and oil pressure display, which is definitely nice. You cannot put things like map displays over here and whatnot, so that's something to keep in mind. Some competitors have definitely gotten a little bit nicer there, but overall, this is definitely a nice look. There's also a drive mode selector. You can see my tester only has 3 drive modes: Eco, Normal, and Sport. If this had the air suspension with the adaptive dampers, it would have 2 other modes, Custom and a Sport Plus. The drive mode selector is selected via this little rotary controller here. It also has your tow haul mode as well, where you can access that. And then you can see here, my tester is missing a couple of other buttons here, but it does have a part-time 4-wheel drive system. There's basically 2 high, 4 high, and 4 low. No automatic setting in this vehicle. If you guys had the TRD Pro, you'd also have a locking rear diff. Again, this model here is missing it, along with the multi-terrain select. This model here is missing it because it's the platinum grade. Over here you can see there's your electronic parking brake. This controls the 10-speed automatic. It also has a manual mode with a sport mode in the transmission. No paddles on the wheel, I wasn't expecting that. Open this up, you can see cup holders here, which is nice. This material isn't aluminum, but it's kind of like a texturized brushed dark aluminum look. It's fake. Your wireless phone charging pad is over there. It's only got 1. There's room for 2. I'm surprised Toyota didn't just give us 2 wireless chargers. And just like the Tundra, you can see padded armrest over here. There's a little bit of storage here, but this feels a little flimsy. Remember, this is a really early pre-production model. And if you want, you can open this up the traditional way, or you can also just slide this open. It allows you to get access to the 2 USB charging ports, a USB-A and a USB-C. It's a pretty big storage compartment here, actually, which is necessary when you're in this type of vehicle. And then you can see over here on the platinum grade, you have more of that dark fake aluminum look trim. It says platinum there spelled out, and then there's also some pretty nice ambient lighting underneath the areas of the dash, underneath the door panels there. It's blue, and it's also in the footwells. You can't see it very well, obviously, in the daytime. I'll try to get some B-roll footage of it at night, but you can't change the color. You can only increase the intensity of the ambient lighting. Looking at the glove box, you can see it's pretty big, actually. It's damped but not lined with felt. It offers pretty good storage. And then above me here, you can see digital rear view camera display, which comes standard on the platinum grade and up. You can see you can also go back to a traditional mirror, or you can go back to the camera mirror. The panoramic sunroof is standard on the platinum grades and up, except the TRD Pro and Limited is optional. A standard moonroof is standard on every grade of the Sequoia. So if you want a Sequoia without a moonroof, sorry, Toyota basically ships them with a moonroof. And then your option is this big panel roof, which lets in a lot of light It goes into the back seat pretty well into the second row. This portion only opens. I wish it was a little bit darker tinted when it's open, but you can see you can fix that by simply closing up that sunshade. But overall, the interior feels very spacious in the front seat. It has all the tech that you could possibly want, including a heads-up display on my tester. Really nice, comfortable driving position, comfortable front seats, heated and cooled seats, and lots of storage. So as a family vehicle that's based off of a truck, it's basically similar to the Tundra. And remember, if you guys want a little bit more luxury, you can also step it up to the capstone grade. So now let's move on to the back seat of the Sequoia. I'm going to show you guys the second and the third row. Now, first of all, this platinum grade that I'm showing you does come standard with captain's chairs. If you want to go for a bench seat back here and get seating for up to 8, you have to step down to the limited or the SR5 trim. I do like how the platinum also gives you these manual retractable sunshades. I call them peasant blockers. And then you can see here the door panel has the same kind of soft text material with genuine stitching, the blue stitching, and kind of really nice storage options here for bottle holders or for drink holders, and then for a couple of loose items over there in the door panels. Now, in terms of the legroom back here, Toyota says you get a little over 39 inches, which is a lot, but some competitors offer another inch or two more space. But you can see there is the power retractable running board. There's a grab handle here, so I can basically hoist my short self into the second row. And then once I get back here, you can see the space is pretty good, actually. You have very good foot space underneath the front seats. There's not a completely flat floor here, but what did surprise me, however, are the heated and ventilated second row seats. This is included if you go for the platinum and the capstone grade. The lower trims will just have heated back seats, but not ventilated seats. You have your own set of rear climate controls. You have 2 USB charging ports, an actual 110 power outlet, rear seat air vents, of course, which are also included in the ceiling of this vehicle. And then I will open this up to let in a little bit more light. You can see this panoramic roof does eat into the headroom. Toyota says it reduces the headroom by about 1 inch. So keep that in mind if you guys have taller passengers riding in the second row. I'm not very tall, so obviously it doesn't affect me too much. And then you can see here, no center console, surprisingly. You do have some cup holders here that allow you to kind of give you a little bit of storage over there. The seats back here, they do have a recline function, so I can recline the second row seats. However, they are now fixed. They don't actually slide forward and back like they did in the previous generation. The reason for that is because of the third row, which does allow you to slide forward and back. Now, let me go ahead and show you guys how to access the third row. You can basically go in through the center there, or you can also just pull this little lever right here, and that is slightly spring actuated. It gives you actually a very good pass through to get into the third row of this vehicle. Now let me go ahead and get back here and show you guys the space, because it is less than the previous generation. Let me go ahead and close that up. Now, once you get back here, you can see the floor is pretty high up. And that's because of that live axle in the back that's raising up the floor, and the battery pack is also raising up the third row slightly to compensate for the raised floor. So the downside is it's now compromised the headroom space. Now, I'm 5'7", and my head is almost touching the ceiling. In fact, if I lay back, my head is touching the ceiling. So for those of you who are taller than me, which most of you probably are, this is going to be a deal breaker. The third row headroom space is not great. And legroom, Toyota says in the seat all the way back like this, you have around 33 inches of legroom, which is about 2 inches less than most of its competitors. Remember, you can slide this seat forward, and when you have it slid forward there, that really eats into the space. I mean, this is probably useless. I'm gonna go ahead and slide this forward here, and oh my gosh, like that's with it almost slid forward and my knees are up against it. So again, 5'7" guy, not very tall. Third row space is very disappointing, and that's kind of could be a deal breaker for some of you. There are power reclining third row seat backs here, which is kind of nice. Toyota did at least include a USB-C charging port. This is a hard area here, although this could be part of a pre-production model. There are still third row air vents, which is nice. There are actual manual sunshades back here, which is also nice. But again, Toyota could really benefit from offering a non-hybrid version where the floor is a little bit lower, and offering a long wheelbase version where they could push the third row back, because this is probably going to be a deal breaker for some of you. So just keep that in mind. If you actually need to put adults in the third row of the new Sequoia, you may be better off with either the Expedition or the GM triplets. All right, so we are finally behind the wheel of the 2023 Toyota Sequoia. Remember, I was sick with COVID when I was supposed to go out to Texas to drive this thing back in May. So Toyota sending me one back home very quickly is a very, very much appreciated on my part, and of course on your guys' part. And if you've had some time in the new Tundra, this should feel pretty familiar. I just spent a week with the Tundra Capstone, which has this same iForce Max powertrain, so this feels almost like I'm driving the new Tundra. The Sequoia is a little bit shorter, and of course it is an SUV. The suspension, however, is tuned slightly different for this one because it's missing the adaptive variable suspension. But since we have our equipment here, let's go ahead and test out what the 0 to 60 is. It's in 4 high right now, and I'm gonna brake torque it in sport mode. Ooh, this thing feels quick off the line, but it short shifts bad initially, but I got 5.85 seconds there, which is a smidge slower than the Tundra Capstone that I tested, which did it in about 5.7 seconds. I am surprised actually at how much it short shifted when it went from first to second. It shifted at like 4,000 RPM. Perhaps it's the brake torquing, it didn't really like that, but this car weighs about the same as the Tundra, a little over 6,000 pounds, and it has the same power, 437 horsepower and 583 pound-feet of torque. So it doesn't surprise me that acceleration is going to feel pretty similar. This truck has just so much grunt off the line. It makes for a very quick off-the-line feel because of all that torque. I mean, nearly 600 pound-feet is a ton of torque. But let's go ahead and try again here. We're not going to brake torque it this time. We're just going to floor it. Shifts at about 4,500 RPM there. 6.2 here, so this is going slightly uphill versus back there where it was going downhill. So the 5.8 second is pretty much what I expected. Keep in mind, you do have to put this car in 4-wheel drive to get the best acceleration out of it, because this truck has a part-time 4-wheel drive system with a low-range transfer case. Toyota is still not doing an automatic setting in the 4-wheel drive to where you can put it into like an automatic mode, which would be great. I really think Toyota needs to add that feature, especially on the higher trim levels. But going around town in the new Sequoia, this vehicle is on a completely new frame. It's got a completely redesigned suspension. My tester is missing the adaptive variable suspension with the rear air suspension. The truck also went back to a solid axle at the back. So the old Sequoia had an independent rear. Toyota had to go back to a solid axle because of the chassis with this vehicle. And because it also is lacking the adaptive variable suspension, the drive modes are slightly different. We have just 3. There's Sport, Normal, and Eco. This is actually my first time driving this platform without the adaptive variable suspension. I had a Tundra 1794 and a Capstone that had both of those features, and it was definitely nice. The Tundra had a little bit of a truckish ride quality, especially if you guys went for the Capstone with the 22-inch wheels. I will say the 20-inch wheels on this Sequoia are a little bit better. It's a smoother ride, but this isn't the best ride quality in the segment for sure. I mean, I imagine though, if you go for the smaller wheels on the Sequoia and get the adaptive variable suspension, it should fix that slightly. But a lot of the competitors that I just recently drove have that independent suspension, which is going to give it better handling, a better ride quality. You can hear it's because it's in rear drive mode right now, it's spitting out the back tires. And this 10-speed is really good. It's smooth, it's quick, it's responsive. It is well matched to the engine's power band. I like the powertrain in this car, just like I liked it in the Tundra. It's basically mirrored in the Sequoia. You're essentially driving the same vehicle. But let me go ahead and try one more acceleration here. I'm going to leave it in 2-wheel drive mode. It's still in sport. So you actually didn't need to put it in 4-wheel drive. It still accelerates off the line smartly. 5.88 seconds there. So we're going to take the 5.8 seconds in this car. It is pretty quick, but remember, I just tested the refreshed Ford Expedition, and that did it in 5.5 seconds. So the extra weight of the Sequoia is obviously slowing it down. But what is going to make this car better than its competitors is most likely the fuel economy, especially with the fact that this is the only hybrid in the segment. If you want something with better gas mileage, you're going to have to buy the Tahoe diesel, the Yukon diesel, because the diesel engine offerings are the only ones that actually get better gas mileage. No one else is offering a hybrid like this on pure gas. Now, the one thing that's really cool is I just let off the throttle right now. It's in comfort mode or normal mode, and the gas engine just shut off. It has a very small 1.87 kilowatt-hour battery pack, so you can't really go too far on electric power alone. But if you're really light on the accelerator, you can see the iForce Max gauge there building up a little bit of acceleration and power because the battery right now is a little over a 3/4 charge. And remember, it charges the battery for you automatically when you're on the brake. The engine will come on to charge the battery. Right now, we're just cruising along in electric only, and that is pretty cool to drive in EV only. This is a different kind of hybrid system versus what you find in something like a RAV4 or a Camry hybrid, because it uses basically an electric motor sandwiched between the gas engine and the transmission housing. So we've got a traditional 10-speed, but right now, again, I've been talking this whole time right now since we went around that corner, and the gas engine is still shut off. We are cruising along on electric power alone right now, which is pretty sweet. I think that's the whole, more modern feel of this new Sequoia, is being able to cruise around in electric power only. Now, granted, if I touch the throttle a little bit, the gas engine wakes up pretty quickly because the electric motor only has like 48 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque on its own. But the fact that you can kind of coast like this, or in parking lots when you're stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic, for example, the gas engine will shut off and you can use the electric motor alone to kind of power this vehicle at very, very slow speeds at light throttle conditions. And let me tell you, when you have it in mostly city driving, this car will get better gas mileage than out on the highway, actually. In my week's worth of testing, in mixed driving, I've been averaging around 17 mpg, which is actually a little bit better than the Tundra that I had, because the Tundra, I believe, is less aerodynamic versus the Sequoia. On the highway, this car did around 21 mpg, so a little bit better gas mileage than the Sequoia, and it's a little bit better, like a 1 or 2 mpg improvement over its competitors, which are non-hybrid gas-only vehicles. But overall, I like the new Sequoia. It drives just as good as the Tundra. It feels so modern now, thank God. The ride quality is okay, it's average. Toyota could have done it better if they really stuck with that independent rear suspension. The handling of the truck is fine. The gas mileage is slightly above average, and the seats in this vehicle also are pretty comfortable. I like the Platinum seats, which have the upgraded leather. If you want even softer leather, you can go for the semi-aniline leather that's in the Capstone model. And really, my only pause with the Sequoia is if you actually need to carry a bunch of people and their stuff, this is not the vehicle for you because of the compromised rear cargo area in the third row, which isn't quite as spacious. And of course, with every new redesign, this vehicle has gotten pretty expensive. This particular one that I'm driving here is well over $70,000, which is just crazy, but that's kind of the way it is with this market. But overall, Toyota is offering a solid product here, and I love how they only offer it as a hybrid only. I would be curious to see if Toyota would consider offering a longer wheelbase version of this car, just to give those buyers the cargo room that they need, that this particular one kind of lacks. But overall, very impressed. Not entirely sure if it's class leading, but it's finally up to par with most of the new competition. So after an agonizing near 15-year-long wait for an all-new version of the Sequoia, the new one is finally here. And after spending a full week driving this car, remember, I missed out on driving this vehicle out in Texas because I was sick with COVID. I have to say, I am very impressed with this new TNGA-F platform. Just like the Tundra, on which this vehicle is based, the new Sequoia drives extremely well and also feels very modern. It needed to be because the old one literally was a dinosaur. I'm very impressed with the hybrid powertrain. The twin turbocharged V6 is smooth, it makes good noises, it's a worthy replacement for the V8, and then when you add that electric motor to it, it gives the Sequoia the ability to drive on electric power alone and low speeds in parking lots, or when you're stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic, which a lot of you, I suspect, if you live in big cities, are probably going to be doing that. And this is where the Sequoia is going to get significantly better gas mileage versus its gas-only competitors and even its diesel-only competitors, which will get better gas mileage in the highway. In my week's worth of testing in the new Sequoia, I averaged around 17 mpg in mixed driving, which isn't bad. It's a huge improvement versus like the 13 that I got in the previous generation. Now on the highway, the best I could muster was around 21 mpg, which isn't bad. It's about 2 mpg better versus what I got in the last Expedition with the twin turbo V6 that I tested. And I suspect this model here only had like 500 miles on it. Once you break it in a little bit more, it should get better gas mileage. And the one that I'm driving here is a very early pre-production model. It's a prototype kind of vehicle. And I suspect Toyota will kind of improve on things as we go forward when production starts next month. Really, my gripes with the new Sequoia have to do with one of the most important factors with this segment, and that's the third row space and the trunk space. Toyota really went significantly backwards by putting a live axle at the back, by raising that floor with the battery pack. I almost think that Toyota should consider offering a non-hybrid version of this SUV, because if they could get rid of the battery pack that's raising up the third row, it should still be much more usable. And to be honest, I suspect that if Toyota did offer a non-hybrid version, it would still sell well because they'll be able to sell it at a lower price. And that's another area where the new Sequoia has significantly, and I mean significantly, gotten more expensive for this new generation. It starts at $59,000 for the base version. That's an increase of nearly $10,000 versus the previous generation Sequoia. That is a huge upcharge. Now, granted, you do get a lot more tech, you get a lot more features, you get a lot more luxury, you get a much newer vehicle, so it's kind of, you know, worthy of being that more expensive, but it does make the new Sequoia several $1,000s more expensive versus its competitors like the Expedition, about $5,000 more expensive than the GMC Yukon or the Chevrolet Tahoe. Keep in mind, you can option up those vehicles to be pretty similar, and the Sequoia does come standard with more equipment, and it also comes standard as a hybrid. Now, this Platinum grade that I'm showing you is considerably more expensive. It starts at around $71,000. Add $3,000 if you guys want four-wheel drive. This particular one here has the heads-up display, but it's missing the rear air suspension, which I suspect is bundled in together. I'm going to suspect that this car here with the $1,500 destination charge is around $76,000. Again, 76 grand is a lot of money, and remember, this isn't even the fully loaded version. You can get a capstone model to be right around $80,000, which matches the pricing of a fully loaded Expedition or a Yukon or a Tahoe, especially if you guys go for, you know, a Yukon Denali. Those can be easily over $80,000. So Toyota has obviously priced this vehicle right. But I suspect those of you who liked the lower starting price of the old Sequoia, you're going to have to go look at an old one or perhaps look at a Nissan Armada, because that's still probably now the cheapest version or the cheapest vehicle in this segment. So obviously with a new generation, it's going to be more expensive, but I do think that Toyota should consider offering a non-hybrid and offering a longer wheelbase for those of you who actually need more space in the trunk, which I suspect a lot of you are probably going to be wanting for that if you purchase this vehicle. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full, very detailed overview on the completely redesigned 2023 Toyota Sequoia. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.